Welcome to Wednesday, July 3rd, 2024. This Day with the Podcast brought to you by Wyoming State Parks. Why wonder about the outdoors in Wyoming? Explore the statewide interactive outdoor recreation wonder map to find your next adventure. I know a lot of you are getting ready to head out and make for a long weekend. So what we're going to do with the podcast this morning is basically just give you a holiday outlook, a few other things as well, but we're going to step you through what we're looking at in terms of precipitation chances, temperature conditions, and wind conditions. Unfortunately, a lot of you are not going to be happy with the wind situation. It's been a windy summer. It was a very windy spring, and we're going to have to deal with it not all the time through the weekend, but certainly over the next 3 days, we will. By the time we get into the weekend, winds will peel back a little bit, but we continue to have this parade of cool fronts coming from the North Pacific through the Gulf of Alaska, through Western Canada, then across the northern tier of the U.S. And here we are in early July, and that parade continues, although the parade will at least take a break next week. We'll talk about that here in a minute. So if you're along and east of the divide, I think the holiday forecast is really all about the divide. If you're in the northern Rockies, central Rockies, and the plains east of the divide, you'll be the windiest and the coolest. And it's going to be pretty windy right along the divide as well. West of the divide, you're going to be warmer, you're going to be drier. The cool air cannot get deep enough to come over the mountains. So if you're outside of the mountains on the western slope, you're really not going to see much weather. The high country will be susceptible to a little bit of thunderstorm activity. We talked about the California heat, the heat in the desert southwest. That'll be making the news. While the nation's midsection will be unseasonably cool, the west coast will be hot. But some of that heat, as we showed you yesterday, will migrate eastward and will arrive especially mid to late next week east of the divide. Now this is from late last week, but down in the southwestern United States, the subtropical moisture leading to a lot of thunderstorm activity over the last couple of weeks, and there's a great shot of some heavy rain producing thunderstorms late last week in areas of western New Mexico. That's where the deeper moisture is going to be here for a couple more days. There you can see it on the satellite imagery. The drier air is pushing in, as we can see on our water vapor chart here. We still, though, notice we still have the deeper moisture along and east of the divide. So along here, there's going to be active showers and thunderstorms. Up here, better chances for showers and thunderstorms as well. And then a little arrow punch of drier air kind of bisecting those two areas of moisture. The upper level trough, the first one that's coming through later today, will be in central areas of Montana. Look at that, another one's queued up right behind it. We'll talk about Beryl here in a moment. There it is. Now, it is still a powerful hurricane, although you can't see a well-defined eye in this situation. Watch out, Jamaica. It's headed right towards Jamaica and the Cayman Islands later on before it heads over to the Yucatan Peninsula. The latest forecast does show major hurricane strength through the Caymans, through Jamaica, then becoming a weaker hurricane as it hits the Yucatan Peninsula, and then will become a tropical storm, maybe briefly becoming a hurricane again, and then tropical storm, perhaps affecting far southwest Texas, eastern areas of Mexico by late in the weekend. So that'll be something to keep an eye on later. In the short term, though, that area is going to be getting hit quite hard. Now, we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I think, about the sea surface temperature anomalies in the North Pacific, where we had a strong gradient between above average sea surface temperatures across the North Pacific here, but the sea surface temperature anomalies in the North Pacific were the opposite, and we have a strong gradient, and that's just leading to a breeding ground for low pressure systems to get formed, come across. Then what they do is they come down and they give us these windy periods and these fluctuating temperatures. And so that gradient is still there. It should weaken eventually. But you can see by Thursday, it doesn't look any different, does it? We've got a low up here, and we have a northwest flow aloft, winds from the northwest, the high pressure suppressed along the west coast and into the south. And basically this pattern that you see right there is just going to last all the way through Sunday, where east of the divide and along the divide, winds aloft are from the northwest. West of the divide they are as well, but it's all about the heat because the continental divide will hold up the cooler air penetrating south out of Canada. So there you are on Sunday. Really not much different. Things are starting to shift a little bit more eastward. So let's step through the variables. So first we're going to do wind. Now I'm just going to go through each day here. And what you're seeing in the colors, if you look down at the bottom here, is the predicted wind gust for the afternoon hours, where the winds are going to be the strongest. So the numbers you see is the gust potential in miles per hour. So where you start to get the darker green shading and the yellows is where you're going to have the strongest wind. So today, right on top of the Interstate 80 corridor is where the strongest winds will be today. For the 4th of July, wind speeds aren't going to be as strong. But they're still gusty. You can see along southwestern Wyoming, along I-80, but not as bad. For Friday, well, they start to pick up again near the mountains and along the divide across portions of eastern Idaho, southwestern and western areas of Wyoming. Saturday winds, not that bad. Certainly, those are very manageable wind gusts. And Sunday the same, except over here. As we start to see the shifting high pressure, we'll have a bit of a gradient in the Four Corners area that's going to make it windy. So if we go back and review, the strongest winds will be today, Friday, getting better over the weekend. But they're going to be nuisance winds for sure. Now let's look at the precipitation potential. This is the forecasted precipitation potential for today, basically from this morning through evening. And you can see up into Montana, there will be some thunderstorms across portions of Nebraska, eastern Colorado into Kansas, then a little bit down there into parts of Arizona, New Mexico, with Arizona getting into some drier air. So this is what the rainfall forecast looks like. And this is going to be a mix of showers and thunderstorms. This is what it looks like for the 4th of July. The heavier thunderstorms are going to be out more east into eastern South Dakota, into the northwest Corn Belt, where frankly they would like to see the rain stop. Montana going to be under a cool, moist air mass, and we showed you yesterday that there could be a little bit of upslope behind the cool front coming in for the 4th of July. So there's nothing really heavy here. A lot of this gray may end up just being low clouds, but there will be some light shower activity. So the northern half of Wyoming, eastern Montana, the Dakotas have the chances of being the most moist for the 4th of July. This is what it looks like on Friday. Again, if Montana feels picked on, you are. Of course, you can't complain about getting rain, but that's where the atmosphere will be the coolest and the most moist. A little bit of shower and thunderstorm activity, but look west of the divide, just nada, zip zero going on. Now for Saturday, as the next frontal boundary and front comes in, we may have a bit more in the way of widespread showers and thunderstorms east of the mountains. This is especially true in eastern Wyoming, Nebraska, far northeastern Colorado, western Kansas, and parts of South Dakota. So it may be a bit more of an active day on Saturday of showers and thunderstorms. But again, you have to place where you are. West of the divide or along the divide, you're really not going to get much. But if you're east of the mountains, you're susceptible to the cooler air, the upslope, and the risk of some showers and thunderstorms. And Sunday, kind of a similar situation. You can see how much the activity is either in Montana, the Dakotas, or right up against the I-25 corridor and points east, while hot, dry weather is going to be found in the west. So by far, not the most perfect 4th of July weekend. I've seen worse, but there's going to be a little bit of weather you're going to have to deal with east of the mountains. West of the mountains, just smooth sailing. Now let's step through temperatures. Still plenty of heat. Actually, we'll get up into southeastern Wyoming, the Front Range of Colorado. We'll have a pretty warm day today. But look at these high temperatures in Montana and northern Wyoming. May only be in the upper 50s in parts of Yellowstone Park today, as that cooler air is going to be just residing up there. But there's still plenty of heat. Now, as we step through this, just notice that the heat will just continue in these two areas right here. The colder air just is not going to be able to penetrate. So cool north, hot south. So this is today. These are high temperatures I'm showing you. The high temperatures for the 4th of July, just downright mild across a lot of the west. But look at the contrast. Where the frontal boundary stalls out, we have hundreds, but you go further north and we have 60s and 70s. That's a pretty big gradient for July, to have hundreds down here in 60s, just a little bit further to the north. So that's your 4th of July. If you're going to be heading to fireworks displays anywhere up here, it's hoodie time, light sweater. It'll be rather cool by the time we get to fireworks. This is for Friday, a little bit warmer, but temperatures are still relatively mild for a lot of the West. And this is for Sunday, again, pretty mild. So we're looking at those temperatures starting to go, the heat starts to expand into eastern Oregon and Washington. So this is the hint right here when you see it further north like this, that it's headed eastward eventually, but it's going to be a slow process. This is for Sunday. Again, many areas in the 70s. So reviewing those temperatures, still some heat today, but the heat is suppressed well to the south for the 4th of July, for Friday, for Saturday, and for Sunday. That's the 5-day temperature anomaly. If you add up today through Sunday, if you add up the highs and the lows compared to the 30-year average, you can see all the blue in that north central area, the heat in the west. Yes, still could see some snow over the higher mountains in northern and northwestern Wyoming, as we have mentioned, over the higher peaks, nothing that's going to get down too low. By late next week, this is by next Friday, the high begins to move east. Once the high begins to move east, that will deflect the jet stream up to the north. That will maybe hold up the parade of fronts, and here comes the heat. And you can see the heat expanding into western Canada, the northern Rockies, and still some coolness down here. And look at the other half of the nation. Really is feeling the effects of that northwest flow. This is going to be due to rain, probably from the leftovers of Beryl, and that'll be something that we'll keep an eye on with our next update. So have yourself a great 4th of July holiday. We'll talk to you tomorrow.